Welcome to where the furniture isn't always the best, but them views, they are amazing.
It's a 13 for y'all. 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 It's a 13 for y'all.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 13th floor where the furniture isn't always the best, but the views are amazing. I am your host this week, Coach K, and I'm here with a full crew. Full. We even got family visitors this week. But before I get to that, I'm going to start out with my man. He just got his back cracked.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. BJ, what's going on?
I'm good, man. In all sense of the word, it's like time to take care of self, and make sure we're doing right by ourselves and not letting our bodies go. That chiropractor been calling me for a couple of years, and I've been putting off. Today was the day, like, you need to go. So I feel great right now, man. Let's get it.
Okay, what prompted you to go? Were you feeling bad? Was something hurting?
It's like silly every night before I go to sleep. I really have to crack my back in different ways to get relief before I can actually sit down and go to sleep. So it's just like I got to the point where I'm cracking my neck like all throughout the day. It's just the point where it's like, okay, I need some relief and not doing it myself before I end up hurting myself.
Yep. Nice.
So what method is your personal back cracking method? Are you kicking that leg and swinging to the opposite side? Are you what you got
I
going
really
on over there?
sit at the edge of that bed and grab to one side and kind of twist and get that loud pop.
Get
Yeah, pretty much.
There
Then
it
the
is.
neck is whatever's gonna pop it at that point in time to get that relief. It may be the quick jerk, but that gets old when you're sitting in meetings and doing stuff all day, man. So I
We
have
do
to be
not
careful.
recommend, ladies and gentlemen, go to a chiropractor. Do not self
Right. Especially if you are age 40 and above, because you mess around and try to turn to that one side and pull something on your whole left side or right
gonna get
side.
you a permanent. Yup.
Right, right,
I
right.
can't even bring it back.
Yeah, you be a temporary invalid. All right. Well, you guys already hear his voice. Fresh is in the building. What's going on, sir?
You know what it is. Letting everybody know. Show me your bits. Another wonderful shirt brought to you by the prestigious clan over there at mycooltshirts.com. Y'all go copy some. We here. We live. We living. What's up?
That's what it is. That's what it is. Back in the building. Had a 1 week little. I ain't gonna make it, but Faison is back.
Yes. Well, everybody knows by now about the notorious headaches that come and go. And listening to last week's podcast, you're right. Listen to your body. Body was like, no, that's it. Go down. And I went down crazy hard. It's the minute that I told you guys I couldn't do it, got in bed and was out.
Mhm.
So, but this week I am excited. There's a sigh of relief. There's a breath. I really enjoyed watching the political pomp and circumstance today. And I even sat and watched the entire press conference and smiled when it was over because it was joyful. So we'll talk more about that, but it was a good press conference. I don't know her name. I don't want to know her name. I just want to know there's a press conference, and that's it. I should know the name of the person holding the briefings because it's not about them. So there you go.
Okay. All right. Well, we're glad, no headache this week. We're glad to hear that.
Mhm.
Without further ado, as I said, I'm not even gonna call him a guest because he's family. So, when he walked in the building, we told him, get yourself a plate, go check the fridge yourself. But this week, we got one of our brothers in the building, Mr. Obilo. Hopefully, I don't get cussed out for that later for saying it wrong. But this man is a finance professional, a writer, a poet. He hails from Jersey. And listen, let me just tell you, his way to Jersey and Jersey City, where he currently resides, is really crazy. He is the firstborn of two Nigerian immigrants, but was born in Canada. And now he is in Jersey City, where he's been for much time. Went to school in PA, and he's here with us today. And we just wanted to invite him out, man. He's an author. If listen, if you haven't done it already, you never heard of him. As we talk about supporting Black business, no better way. There is a book out right now that this man has written called Memories of the Future. And it just actually came out the end of last year, actually. And we'll hear more about that shortly. But without further ado, Obi, welcome to the 13th floor.
Hey, I appreciate you. Art, appreciate you. BJ, appreciate you. Fresh, thank you for having me all. It's always nice to see you, brothers. It's good to see you guys. Good to be here. Apparently, I didn't get too lost in terms of the directions I took. I came off the elevator. I think I made that first right turn as was advertised. So I'm happy to be in the room with you guys. It's a glorious day. We don't need to do too much political talk, but listen, it's funny. I went to sleep last night and I was like, oh damn, I'm just nestle into this bed real quick. I was like, it felt good not to not to have to just like worry about what kind of nonsense is gonna overtake my day.
Right.
I have enough nonsense going on as it is.
You are absolutely right. Ever since they stormed the Capitol, it's just been like, all right, what's going to happen? What's going to happen on Inauguration Day? We heard all the chatter and everything, but you know what? We're not even going to give that respect right now. We're going to come back to this day. It's not often that I think when you talk about poetry, ever since the days of Def Poetry Jam, I think things just got kind of quiet. Like everything was kind of like popular then. People had poetry spots and, going to them. And that was the thing to do. And lately it just seems like that part of the culture has gone kind of quiet. But here we are today with a poet, right? And I guess the first thing is what led you to poetry? Like, talk us through that.
Sure. Well, first, let me actually give a shout out to the young woman who is the U.S. Youth Poet Laureate, Amanda Gorman. She was fantastic. I thought it was really dope to hear her words, especially on that kind of stage. For her to have that kind of presence, as well as that message on that stage, it was impressive, and I think she really met the moment.
She did, and you know what? I hope that was the beginning of many moments for her, because to me it was just like, hey, she has arrived. Here's our modern day Maya Angelou, right?
Great way to put it.
I don't know if there was anybody there or anybody that since Maya passed that we thought was like, man, this is the person that's going to step up and be that role. And I think we saw that today, and I can't wait to see. I want to find out more about this young lady. I didn't know anything about her before today.
Yeah, I mean,
Very true.
I mean, what I'd say, I mean, we still have, Nikki Giovanni, Sonia Sanchez. I mean, there are definitely poetic voices that are very relevant for this time. I'll go into some of the folks who've influenced me, but it's beautiful to see I think to your point, a Black woman, and especially a young Black woman, out there on that stage, particularly with the history being made with Kamala becoming vice president. But I'll just go quickly into what got me into poetry.
You don't even have to go quickly, man. You can take your time.
Okay, I'll take it. That's fine. I started writing when I was 5 years old, 6 years old. I used to have like a blue notebook, and I'd write down everything from like capitals of the U.S., the states in the U.S., capitals of the world, other bits of information, and then I just started writing like little poems and essays like when I was young. And then really, outside of like stories and like I always had a passion for writing. But I really picked it up in college. I had a friend of mine, Carlos Andres Gomez, who's like the person who was known for poetry on Penn's campus. He's still a touring and performing spoken word artist nationally and internationally, although folks aren't really doing too much abroad currently. But in any event, we were classmates in college, and he just came up to me one day. We had taken some classes together, and he came up to me one day and was like, Obi, like I know you really care about social issues. I know you have a deep reverence and passion for hip hop. I know you really like to write. You should really think about doing spoken word poetry. I think it would be a good fit for you. And coming from somebody like him, who like everybody on Penn's campus knew like he was the guy. It encouraged me to sort of try my hand at writing, spoken word, and really started finding my voice that way. So I've had sort of different iterations and stages with my writing, but that's how I came into writing in my modern era and spoken word poetry. So that's taking me back to the early 2000s
Yeah.
until now.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question, right? Because you said you didn't really get into it until college, which was University of Pennsylvania. I think I mentioned it earlier, but um, what was that like as a child being in a Nigerian household, and here you are writing poetry and stories? What was the support like for that?
They bought me pens and and a notebook. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure. I mean, my parents knew I like to like write and read. So I mean,
Mhm.
structurally, like being an African kid, if you're like, oh, hey, I want to spend some time writing and reading, they're not gonna be like, no, you gotta cut that out. Go get a
Right.
job. No, no, they were very supportive of
But
me writing and reading.
but did they know that you were writing poetry though?
Well, I was writing I would write like short stories. Like I was writing,
Okay.
I was just writing just generally.
Hmm.
And, my dad, and I always had, I always like to like think about ideas and argue. I argued a lot, as Art knows. I'm big on arguing. So,
Yeah.
like my dad, like a lot of like I was gonna say Nigerians, but a lot of immigrant parents, you always say like, become a lawyer, a doctor, engineer, which
Hmm.
really for them is like, these are tangible things that they know are, big professions, but also things that they understand, and they've seen somebody who's done something in that way, so it's something that they can perceive. And so, my parents always wanted, always had fashion hopes of me becoming a lawyer, which, writing is still going to help in that realm.
Hmm.
So I mean, so they were always supportive of it. It was actually, I kind of threw them a curveball when I said, oh, I want to go to, study business in college, and they were like, well, you know, what is that? Like, you should still think about going to law school or something. But yeah, no, from the writing front, they've always been, my family's always been encouraging of it. It's just, and I've always been able to do it as a passion, right? It's interesting. I think, as you say, like, just being an immigrant and then writing, or
Hmm.
being like somebody who's known for doing finance and writing poetry. I think those are sort of the things that may stand at odds to some people, but I've always been able and enjoyed being many things at the same time. So
Yeah.
in my writing, I'm able to kind of explore and express those things.
It's funny that you say that, being able to express those things. So what was the subject matter of like some of your early writing?
There was one story I remember writing. It was the summer between, I think it was between my 5th and 6th grade, something like that. And I wrote a short story. It's like 40 or 50 pages. I basically spent it was a summer camp. I spent the whole summer camp writing out a story about me going on, like, I think it was like Teen Jeopardy or something. And that
Okay.
was this whole thing. It's like, I went on Teen Jeopardy, and like I didn't know enough characters, so like the two other like the two friends who came with me were like two girls who happened to, like, I just named them after like two girls who happened to live in my apartment complex as well.
Hmm.
So they also applied and got on Teen Jeopardy somehow at the same time as I did in my story. Long story short, after a couple trials and tribulations in the tournament, I was able to come through victorious. And so like, that was an early story I wrote. Although I will say, and I believe, God rest her soul, because she she was elderly at the time. But one of my teachers, from when I was a kid, like my dad like brought it to her. Like, it's like, oh, look, my son wrote this short story, and she like she like took it and held on to it, and was like, oh, he's gonna be somebody someday. I want to have this. And I was like, well, can you make a copy for me or something? Like, literally, like, I wrote this thing by hand.
Yeah.
And like, like I finished it, and that was like the last I ever saw of it, which is, you know, often a reminder of how Black folks in their labor gets co-opted by the forces that could be.
Right. Who knows what she did with that poem, with that story?
You know, she might have given it to one of her grandchildren and say, hey, just
That
swap some
was
names, out.
that was the real basis of Slumdog Millionaire. He just changed the things up and changed the show. That's what happened.
Right. Right. Right.
In a
You know,
way, yo, like in a way, like not if I think back, like I mean, the elements were there.
See,
yeah.
see.
Wow. Wow. That's interesting. And you know, it's things that we don't think about, right? Like your dad was probably just proud. He's like, oh, look what my son did.
Mhm.
And this lady was like, let me read that. Oh yeah, this can I have this? I want to keep this as a memento.
Right.
Right. That's funny, man. That's funny. So let's talk about the evolution of writing, right? So you start out stories, it goes poems at some point, right? You meet Carlos in college, he gives you a little push. Let's talk about the college days, man. So at that point, you know, what does the writing then turn to at that point?
So I really wasn't writing anything specific. I mean, I was writing essays, like for class. Like I almost pursued an English minor. So, you know, a lot of stuff I was writing was just sort of like long form or opinion pieces, if and as, the thoughts came to me. It was, like listening to hip hop, maybe writing some rhymes. So it was very rhythmic already, things that I was writing or things I was thinking about. And, but my writing style as it relates to like, even how I write now, it's a prosy type of poetry. So, there's no particular rhyme scheme. It's all about rhythm and, like multisyllabic, a lot of assonance, a lot of alliteration. So there's a rhythm to the way that I write,
Mhm.
and the way that I perform, I guess. So, that's really what's come through. But I've been able to find more of myself in the writing. Before, what I was doing was just, again, like I was very much a political actor, for lack of a better way to put it. I was very active and aware of different causes and different concerns, and was, out in support of them. And then, so when I was writing poetry, it would really be a lot more of an outward reflection. And there's still certainly room for that. If you observe like the spoken word scene for a long time, I mean, there are a lot of people who are, very much talking about politics and what's going
Yeah,
on in the world.
what's my guy's name? It's Saul something.
Oh, Saul Williams. Yeah,
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 Saul
yeah.
Williams.
The OG, the quadruple OG of spoken word poetry, man.
Yeah.
And I did. I think I did. I forget when I watched that movie Slam for the first time, but yeah, no, like it was. You have those kind of actors, but then I really started, to think about actually putting myself in the poems in a way that was meant to be more revealing and make myself more vulnerable in my writing, and hopefully more relatable to not just to the audience, but even to myself, right? Because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, like I don't know if anybody's read my stuff more than I have, so I have to be able to go back and look at it, and even if I look at the words, I'm like, yo, damn, like like I can at least say, you know what, in that time, in that moment, I knew, like I understood who that young man was.
Mhm.
I think I'm glad you went into that topic, because I was going to jump in there and ask you about that moment of time when you're going back and you're reading through the ones that didn't make it into Within the Will of the Spirit, or didn't make it into Memories of the Future. Um, when you look back at those 2004 the poems, the spoken words you put there, what do you think about? Are you able to pull that emotion of where you were at that moment and feel that time frame?
That's a really interesting question, that actually has a very specific answer. So, well, I'll just kind of give the anecdote, right? There weren't like a lot of pieces that didn't make the book. For some reason, there was some stuff that just didn't fit in like my first book, within this welded spirit. Um, but that was really like, it was really kind of capturing the first year and a half. That was really, really in like writing and like writing more slam stuff and just kind of like really active. It was like more encapsulating a period of time. So there was some stuff I was just like, there's tighter pieces that I have than this, like, and there's just not enough to rework here. But then, so I put the, what was that manuscript together to publish it, and then I was still writing. So I was still writing a bunch of stuff with the intention of putting out my second book. I lost my hard drive that was laid out to publish that second book, and I was planning on doing that 2006 around that time frame. And then, started grad school, then started working in New York, and I really just literally stopped writing poetry. And I started writing poetry again in the midst of the pandemic. I found myself, in the house, observing what was going on in the world. And like a lot of people, I think a lot of people just started out being confused and even thinking like, all right, we'll be back by like April or May, maybe, right? Like it wasn't a lot of clarity at first as to how long this, even saying this, right? I still don't even know what this is, but like what this, whatever we thought this was, we thought it was gonna. I think a lot of us thought, okay, it's gonna be short lived. Then you reach the point where like, oh damn, like this I don't really know, but I have to get used to what the world is, and I was still writing through that. And a lot of my stuff was observational, and then it started getting more poetic, and people started saying, "Oh, and I was using this hashtag on Instagram, just kind of chronicling thoughts and putting stuff out there. It was the hashtag was Corona Chronicles, and people started asking like, "Oh, you got to put out the Corona Chronicles. You got to do something with this." And I got the idea from one of my cousins to kind of blend some old pieces with new stuff. And that's a long bridge to get to the crux of your question, which is I had a bunch of poems that I had written 14, 15, 16 years ago, set up to a lot of stuff that I had written like in 2020. And even when I had stopped writing, part of the reason why I stopped writing was I'd have an idea and be like, man, I can't write like I used to. Like I didn't give myself enough room to just write. Like I was too critical. And then I started writing. I was like, yo, this stuff is tough. So then when I started going back to the old stuff, I was looking at it and I was like, all right, well, you have to figure out, well, how do I get myself? And now I always thought this was going to be the hardest part of all because it was such a long gap. The time gap was, how do I get myself into like the thought process that I had, almost half a lifetime ago, to figure out where I wanted that poem to go, to then say, here, with my new artistic sensibility, what do I need to do to make this poem be what it is? And so two quick examples. One, there was a reference in one of the poems early in where it lands early in the book, where I made a reference to my 10-year-old cousin who wanted to write poetry, and now she's actually a well-known poet in Canada. But like she's 20, she's like in her 20s now. So the quick edit, that's like a quick edit. So instead of saying my 10-year-old cousin, is when my cousin was 10 years old. Very simple. There was another piece that I had in there, and I was talking about this child that my aunt used to take care of, and her mother was a heroin addict, and she was born addicted. And I remember when I wrote the piece, I was writing the piece when I was just graduated college, and trying to reflect back on the time when I was 12 or 13, observing this child. And I just remember when I read the piece again, I was like, this is a good piece. But the problem is I'm like blaming this mom too much because I don't know who this woman is. And I'm just not giving her enough grace to understand, to just appreciate that like life and circumstances befell her, that like she's not a criminal, right, in that way. And so I had to really just kind of soften my tone. But that's also part of life that got it's not even really just a poetic sensibility. It's like it's my own self understanding that, like, listen, who I was, like, I wish I could look back, and I hope I look back on who I was when I was in college, for example, and I hope we all can do that and say, you know what, yo, he might have been a knucklehead or whatever, but like, yo, he clearly was on the right track because he got me to who I am right now. And that you hope that, especially with support systems, that people have that space to get to where they are and where they or where they can be. And so, I had to rework that piece to just kind of give that woman a little more space to understand, like, the difficulties that she encountered. So it's stuff like that. But once I started making those kind of edits, then I was like, all right, cool, yeah, I'm back, because my mind is now clicking, and I can actually, I can interpret my old self into my new self, if that makes sense.
That absolutely makes sense. And it's funny, man. So I didn't even realize that the period of, let's call it, revitalization, um, was in 2020 once the pandemic hit. And I say all the time, people think about the negative things that came with the pandemic, but there were so many positive things that came as well, such as the clearing out of all the noise. And now you're spending time with yourself and your thoughts, and you're starting to think about, man, remember when I used to do this? Um, and you found a way to rekindle that, which, we always talk about that being one of the benefits of the noise clearing out and the smoke clearing out of all the things that aren't really that important, and with us really getting back to who we are. So I really want to get to one of the pieces, if you don't mind sharing. But while you're doing that, what I heard, right, and I don't know if everybody else heard it, there was a little bit of mental health maintenance in this process, right?
Yep.
Like, even at that time, maybe you didn't realize it's what you were doing. But when you go back and look at it and you're trying to make sense of those situations, and as you say, now you're adding clarity, um, do you see that now carry through to who you are now and realize the benefits of what you had done?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is definitely, because I think that 2020, I think a lot of people were like, like, F 2020, like, this year is terrible. And it clearly wasn't like the best year. Like, I like, if I go through all the other 38 and a half years I've
Yep.
had, like, 2020 is probably not in like, in some respects, is, I'd say, like, it wasn't my favorite year, but, like, in a lot of ways, it was my best year. And I think one of the ways is that it was very, very insightful. I don't think that, I think that the ability for us as individuals and also as a collective community to have some of these reckonings was actually very, very illuminating and important for some of the discussions that needed to be had internally, externally. So I think that was critical that it happened. I think it was also, for me, it helped me manifest. And I think the book just happened to be like one outcome of being able to, like, take a step back and just be more insightful, be more observant, be more caring, and give more grace. I think one of the things that a lot of people have done, and I hope that we continue to do this, even if things go back to quote unquote normal, is, like, I'll write emails, or I'll check on people. Even just period, I'm checking on people more. As you see people, you greet them more. You ask people how their day's going more. You ask them about their family more. Understanding that, a lot of people are dealing with this situation. The situation itself is a trauma. There are external traumas because of what may be going on with their family. People that have kids, the kids don't understand what's happening, or the kids do understand what's happening. Parents, not being able to see family, being stuck with family. I mean, there are all these different iterations of how people are having to sort through this time.
Right.
But, again, it goes back to the point that I said about just giving ourselves a little bit more, being more empathetic to just generally, but also I think to ourselves, because we spend more time with ourselves than anybody else.
Than anybody else. Yep. No, that's dope, man. Definitely. Well, man, I think we probably got the people. They're probably waiting now to hear something. So let's let's give them a little something. Let's satisfy that thirst right now.
All right. I have two pieces. I'll do one, and then and then I'll hold on to the other one, and do that one last, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Not
All
at all.
right, cool. So this piece is called Day 93, to Reverend William D. Chappelle. It was, again, and just to even give a little bit of context for the audience, there's a lot of pieces that I was writing again in the midst of the pandemic, and so those pieces started on day one, which is literally the first day that I was, banned from going to the office and working from home and I used the cutoff point of day 100. And so as you can notice, I'm saying day 93, like, a lot of stuff at the end of the book, like it was literally as things were happening. And one of the things that happened around that time was Dave Chappelle dropped that 846 special that I know a lot of people saw, and it was, it was one of those, it's a comedy special only in the sense that it's Dave Chappelle who was the vessel through which it was delivered.
Right.
But it was one of the most powerful performances I've seen ever by a stand-up, or really by anybody taking the stage. And he was talking about the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that officer was on the neck of brother George Floyd. But there was something even within there that he focused on, which was his family legacy and lineage. And that was something that really stuck out to me, and so I wrote a piece about that. So I'll get into that piece right now. For generations, our griots have shared the joys and howled the anguish of our ancestors, loud enough to reach the ears of the unborn. In those instances, we are reminded that though our textbooks were stolen and our libraries razed, our stories have endured, written on vocal cords tattooed like ink patches of parchment. It is no accident that in the wingspan of perceptible grasp between a great-grandfather and where we stand today sits over 3 centuries of knowledge within the reach of the institutions of our minds. These are the pillars the Parthenon could only pantomime. So do not ever insult me with talk of simply letting go, when these traumas and triumphs still bear a name that reads as my own. Let this journey be my open letter of thanks to the lessons learned from those teachers I will never meet. The reasons who begat the reasons who begat the reasons I came to be. For I can only hope that their scripture continues to resonate through me. And this too is my postscript from a time transported only in my veins to the days that have yet to see the children who will yield the grandchildren, who will yield the great-grandchildren I burden with my legacy. But no one ever questioned that I loved you, that I had faith in you, and that you will all be okay.
Nice. Wow. Man, I just want to take a moment to pause right there. One, it's just amazing how easily you just transitioned and flowed into that space, right? And it's amazing when we're doing something that comes from so deep within inside that just comes naturally, right? Like there was no doubt that that's who you are right there. So talk to us about that piece, man. What was the significance of that piece?
Yeah, so and I really appreciate that. The thing, and again, going back to that Dave Chappelle special 846, what really stuck out to me was, which sticks out to me, especially now with everything that Chappelle does, because he's so specific about it in a very, very, even more intentional. He was always specific about it, but he's even more deliberate about how he does it, which is framing. And so one of the things that he framed in the special was the legacy and the importance of his great grandfather, Reverend William D. Chappelle, who was like one of the leaders of the AME Catholic, or sorry, AME Church. Sorry, not Catholic, but AME Church in I believe either in like South Carolina. I believe South Carolina. If I'm not mixing up the detail on location. But you know, for you know, it just really, you know, it really just stuck out to me, like in terms of like legacy and how all the actions that we take can influence things that, you know, we'll never experience, as well as how many actions that are taken before us have influenced what and who we are today. And I think a lot of that has to, you know, we see a lot of those inferences, right? And so, you know, what can we do now to, you know, establish new legacies, right? What can we do now that way that, the sadnesses that we had, the traumas that we dealt with as kids, you know, aren't passed down to our kids, right? Who are then going to pass it down to their kids, right? You know, it's just something. It's really just something to think through, and this was just my way of kind of processing that feeling.
Yeah, and for me, you know, let me tell you, man, I saw you paying tribute to the title character, right? Like William D. Chappelle. I don't know if the D's right, but William Chappelle, and then that legacy of going to what's now presented as Dave Chappelle. But then I also saw the duality of you now talking about what's going to happen with you and eventually when you have kids, and that legacy and everything that you're doing now being a quote unquote burden um, for them, right? Which, you know, when we think of burden, we think of a negative connotation, not always realizing that, hey, you might have the burden of good, right? Based on what I did. So it was just really cool to watch that that duality that was in there. And I don't know if that was intentional or if that's just my perception, my, you know, what I saw, but that's what I got.
Yeah, no, I mean that was the thought that I was thinking. I mean, I was trying to translate that sort of nugget that I took from that piece into something that felt not only just kind of general to experience, but then also my own, you know, what I would hope that I'm able to impart, knowing what has been imparted in and through me. And then I also, there, you know, you also resonate and touch on, you know, a little bit or sort of tangentially on the Black experience, you know, to say like, listen, like, you know, we have, you know, centuries of 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 mistreatment, putting it mildly, right? So, you know, don't, you know, folks should not be told, listen, like these things don't matter, because, you know, they are not that long ago that they've happened, and that those experiences are still reverberating through us. So, you know, I mean, I'd even like to hear from, you know, from the crew, just in terms of like, not necessarily how they felt about the piece, but I mean, it could be about the Chappelle skit, or even just, you know, how they feel, you know, how you guys all feel about, you know, when you're thinking about your own kids. I don't have kids yet, so I'm just making this stuff up, right?
Yeah.
About like, you know, but it's just, you know, and again, I know, you know, Art is my brother-in-law, so I know my nephews, you know, are in the house, probably, hopefully they're sleeping, but even still, you know, like I hope that there's some good that comes of them knowing me, you know. But you know, I always, you know, think about like how do you guys think about that, especially in this time now that we're in.
Well, yep. And I'm gonna let the fellas jump in. But it's interesting that you say that, because immediately when you talked about the legacy and where we are today, I thought about the things that occurred today, right, in inauguration. But I'll let the fellas jump in first with their feelings on that legacy piece and the actions that we're doing today.
I'm gonna concede first to our resident oldest child maker here, who's kind of leading both of us in the path of what's right and how to, and give us an example of what it is. So
Child maker.
yes, so BJ, if you want to,
I'm sitting here like, is he talking about me? Like,
you are exactly. Listen, this
First
guy,
one to go bang, bang, bang.
I watch his leadership style
Got to coordinate
with the kids, and it's amazing to me. So I think it's befitting to let him tell that story, because I've let my path through his experience.
Yeah, that's a humbling statement because I wow, like seriously, you got me off guard with that one, man. And I say that in all humility because I try on a daily basis to just think, what do I need to do today to guide, right? And one of the epiphanies I had over the years is that, like my parents, there were a lot of things that we were told we needed to do because that was just the way the house ran, right? But given the freedom to make choices and to fail was probably the best experience that my mom, shout out mama, I know you watching, then my mom and pops, they let us do. And it wasn't, we have to save them. We have to make sure that they're coddled all the time. It was that freedom to fail and learn from mistakes, but know that they were there to, again, not save us, but help us if we need, if we, all we had to do was reach out, and they were there. And for me on a daily basis, that legacy piece now is, how do I instill that thought process, that emotion, that just desire to go out and just do for myself and not have to rely on the world to give me everything, um, is a daily struggle. But I also have to say that I look at you guys as well. Um, One of the greatest joys, I mentioned to Kay the other day, well, a couple weeks ago now, it feels like the other day. Like I see y'all and y'all kids, and that's a blessing to me. Um, and I say that again. I see Dre, um, y'all know Dre's daughter. We watched her when the family was going through everything with them. Bless up Kingston. Like every time I see that little man, like a tear comes in my eye, cause like that's just a blessing to see everything, and you guys know what I'm talking about. So is to see that man walking around and doing stuff and just up, like I'm blessed to see the offspring of everybody else. And again, when I say that, I think about what is my responsibility, not about BJ, but just to make sure they have what the tools they need and the necessity they need. Like when Wendy and Asher were down here and they called and said they wanted to, Asher said he wanted to come see Uncle BJ. Yo, my heart lit up. Like seriously. Like I was on cloud nine because like Asher said he wanted to come see Uncle BJ. Like what we got to eat, what we got for him to do when he get here. Like we got to entertain him. Like come on, let's go. Like we put everything on pause to take care of, make sure he was good and make sure when he wanted to come, this is the place where he's safe and providing that sense of protection. For me, that is the ultimate form of legacy. It's not about, we have to take care of the finances and all that stuff, but it's the feeling you get kids have when they come around people. It's the understanding of these people are here to protect me and guide me. And again, as Obi, as Uncle Obi, like that's what that magic is. That's what that presence is. I talk about my father passed away in 2003 at the age of 49, hitting 40 this year, and coming up in that last 9 years that he only lived on this earth. Like it's scary for me. Praying and hopeful that my life is extended beyond that, but I have no idea what tomorrow holds. I know what the next 9 years holds, right? But if that in the twinkling eye is gone tomorrow for them, how prepared did I leave them to fight in this world? That's the legacy. How prepared did I have them to understand that this tribe that raised them, that you guys right there, no matter what they know and what do, this is their tribe who's going to support them, and that tribe is there no matter what. That's the legacy that hopefully that I'm doing something on a daily basis. And I'll just pray that when the time comes, that's the thought that they have, because you can't make it, you can't tell them this because kids, it goes over the head. Like they don't understand that. But what processes, what experiences have I put in front of them to let them know that reflection time comes, that is the legacy. It's the tribe around them. It wasn't about daddy. One of the biggest things, again, I'm gonna cut it after that we had a conversation about parenting at the church level is really your job as a parent was God bless you with the kids. You had them and you protect them, and then you let them go. You give them the tools they need, and then you let them go. They have to make their own decisions. They have to live their own lives. And if we can accomplish that, it's a success.
This is why I let him go first. Now all of America, the world knows this process. And how do you follow that? Simply by saying, I want to make sure that when my time comes, my children look back at all the things that I taught them, and the things that I taught them make them think of the man that I am and the man they're going to be better as. So my entire goal in my life with them is to teach them everything that I know, but also teach them everything that I've seen to ensure that they then can pass that on to their kids.
Yeah. It's funny. I think BJ mentioned it's not about money or something he said to that effect. And it's really the feelings and the experiences. And that's the truth, because I think we get put into this false sense of, man, this legacy that you got to leave is in the bank account, right? And them being able to not have to struggle from a financial standpoint, but when you struggle from a human being standpoint of the voids that you have, I think that's the true danger, right? And that's the true damage, and where things get passed down, as opposed to, look, I think for probably all of us on here, our parents probably didn't really have a whole lot of money in the bank when we were younger, when we were kids. Did we know it?
We didn't know it though, and we felt like we
No
owned.
clue. No clue. You look at things that are going on in the world right now,
To that first school trip, but for the most part, nah.
right. Right. You think about the political climate right now, and obviously, we're hoping that we're going to be in an uptick here, but politics didn't matter to us when we were kids. That wasn't all the politics that were going on then. We were oblivious to, right? Our parents, we had our experiences, and I think those are the things that you're right, that become important. Those want to be part of the legacy, experiences and how to treat people. Like, those are the number two things. And then, man, if I can start you off with some money too, okay, that's great. But don't become dependent on that. Don't measure your success and your ability in this life by that bank account.
Sure.
And then there was silence.
I think it's befitting before we go, before we let Obi go back to the world of writing and complete his next book, which he's working on. We got to talk about the Black business aspect and how you are self-published. It's a big factor there that does not talked about enough, and how you went through that process to make sure of it. And I know this could be a whole other podcast of just how you went through that process for it.
I can come back. Listen, you got to let me back. I can come back. But no, I'm more than happy to talk about it, because so the funny thing is I'm still learning about the experience. So like when I had my first book, I just wrote it. I wrote it, put it out. I didn't really take too many. I probably shouldn't do the podcast, but I didn't take all the requisite precautions. However, with this book, I figured, well, there's going to be some opportunities, not just for the book, but potentially to do some engagements. So let me create an LLC, and I also want to, start doing some stuff on the real estate side. Although structurally, I need to, you want to make sure that your real estate properties are bankruptcy remote. That's another matter. For this conversation, I decided to put the LLC together. Just honestly, the number one reason was just so I could cleanly track what things related to the book versus things that didn't relate to the book to the rest of my life. And then, went through the incorporation process. And it was fun. I actually had a good friend of mine who basically just reads these kind of contracts all day. So he helped me save a bunch of money versus having to, find somebody else. He made sure that my docs were in order. And so, been going through the process. And again, figuring out how to like what kind of company to incorporate, how to incorporate it, and right now it's single proprietor, but I could change the way the way the company's structured depending on how I want the tax liabilities to look. I haven't really dived into that piece yet because again, this is still more of a passion project, and to the extent that speaking engagements and all these other elements become a much more active lane for me, so to put it. I may make some other considerations again, from a limiting liability standpoint, but I thought it was important just to have the business incorporated, one, again, like I said, for tracking purposes, and also again, it allows me to have something to present to people to say, all right, well, it's not just the book, there's a plan, and I'm working on other activities, other engagements, there's a structure around how how it's all presented. So again, like the LLC was formed, hashtag Igwe LLC was formed in August of last year, so like really right before the book came out. And I'm still like working through like the filings and stuff, because quarterly filings on the sales tax, sales and use tax in New Jersey, and then there's a bunch of other stuff that I'm sorting out, figuring out what the actual liability is going to work out. Then I also got to see how much of my rent I can potentially apply, since I worked from home for most of the year, as well as did this whole project out of my place. So again, there's always going to be some advantages to incorporating. For me, one thing I realized, it's funny because I'm in finance and I do corporate lending, but you don't think about all of the different factors that go into like your own personal elements. I can analyze everybody else's stuff, but you really got to take the time to figure out your own strategy and your own financial objectives. And so this is just something I'm doing to keep the book organized, but also as I look into other things that I want to do, whether it's creating additional entities, or having an umbrella entity, and then having some other some entities that kind of roll up into that. There's definitely some considerations that I have there. And again, from the book, the primary thing is to enjoy the book. I've been saying it'll be a happy accident if the book becomes my full-time job, mostly because I have I have to be making a lot of money for this to become my full-time job.
Listen,
we know that feeling.
Yes, exactly. It's the first step, but it's there. It's out there now, and because it's out there, and this man has an official ISBN number. This is not, you're not going to find this man on the side of the street hustling a book. He's going to tell you to buy it from a website or buy it from an authorized seller. So it's hopefully our listeners, if you want to let them know where to find the book, where they can get it from, and how they can follow you to hear more about it.
No, certainly. So the book is on my website, #igwe.com. The word hashtag Igwe, IGWE, all one, .com. Then you can also follow me on social media, primarily Instagram. My personal Instagram is RSB the Goat. And then I also have my poetry page and performance page at #Igwe. So you see this continuity in terms of the branding and marketing. Or you can send me an email at #Igwe@gmail.com. So those are some of the ways that folks are able to connect with me. I do have a YouTube channel that I do link to. I got to give a big shout to BJ. He helped me orchestrate the launch party and launch event I did for the book. That was very successful. So thank you again, brother. And fellas, I really appreciate you guys giving me a chance to check in with you guys on this historic night, not just because I'm here, but because we got a new president.
Right. We got a new president, new VP. Hey, man, no, the pleasure's all ours, man. Definitely, and I think for sure we want to have you come back because I mean, we just really talked about one of your, I'm gonna call it a gift, one of your gifts. I think there's so much more that you have that we can expose people to and make sure that we get some push behind these entities that you're about to create. I'm excited for you. I think what I want to do, and I want to make it real clear because we've said it a couple of times in passing, but this is not book number one. This was actually book number two. The first one was called Within This Welded Spirit, and that came out in 2004. Really quickly, is that one available on your website as well?
Yeah, both books are available on my website.
Perfect.
I have a team that's helping me with distribution. So
Mhm.
certainly, if you check out the site, you can find both books on there. Proud of both projects.
Nice.
Obviously very excited about this new one, but the old book, I still have people who reach out to me and let me know that they have it on their bookshelf, that they still read it from time to time. I've gotten some really, really amazing messages about this new book too. People who've been really touched by the writing and some of the messages therein.
Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, Memories of the Future and Within This Welded Spirit. Um, Go get both of them. We want to put Namdi and Arenze to work with distributing those books, getting that free labor while we can. But hey, so what I want you to do for this next piece, because man, it's been such great having you here, and the first piece was awesome, and I loved it, and I want to make sure that we intro this one properly. So, what would you say to the people that the theme of this one is?
It's interesting, and just kind of looking through the book. I'm going to pick a somewhat of a shorter one, but I think the theme of this is, again, going back to what I was talking about grace and just being expressive, being able to be there to support and acknowledge each other, particularly as Black men, and I think a lot of the reason why I really thought about writing this one, oddly, it was one of the hardest pieces to write for as as simple as the rhyme scheme felt to me, because of, I think, the message that lay within, and also given the time frame that it was written in, when you had Ahmaud Arbery, when you had his assassination, taking a jog, George Floyd being assassinated, what happened with Breonna Taylor, what happened with Christian Cooper in Central Park, bird watching, and you had all these instances of continued violations of Black bodies. I wanted to speak to some of the pain that a lot of people were going through in that moment, that we were seeing spill out into the streets. But I also wanted to write something positive, because, like, listen, I'm getting weighed down by all of these, like, all these feelings, all the everything that's going on in these streets, and then you're like, well, I don't want to be out there in the streets with everybody because we're in the midst of a global pandemic. So it was a lot going on, and I really had to take the time to say, listen, I want to just think about, like, how do I connect with people in a positive way and reflect. And so it came out for me in this piece that was it's called Day 90, Affirmative Actions. Is that you, my brother? Tried and true, my brother. Let's chill, my brother. Let's build, my brother. I support, my brother. One accord, my brother. I perceive, my brother. I believe, my brother. I hear, my brother. Don't fear, my brother. No war, my brother. No more, my brother. I protect, my brother. Won't neglect, my brother. I respect, my brother. Yo, let's connect, my brother. We'll rap, my brother. Let's dap, my brother. Let's hug, my brother. I love, my brother.
Man, thank you for that. I could tell that as you were going through that one, it tugged at some heartstrings there. It's really interesting, man. I mean, just to watch, you connect to your own words, and where you go. But that one was powerful. Definitely something that we try to embody here week in and week out on the 13th floor. And even when we're not here on the podcast, our conversation is daily, right? And thankful for these brothers and thankful for brothers like you that are willing to be vulnerable and put things out there in that way, because that's a side that I think society has kind of dehumanized us a bit and make it seem like we don't have that vulnerable side, and um, just takes away from the importance of Black men and us supporting each other. So thank you for that, man. Definitely appreciate it. Once again, giving up some of your time for us. We definitely appreciate it, and we will have you back soon. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, on Instagram at hashtag Igwe. That's hashtag IGWE, hashtag Igwe at gmail.com if you want to get in contact, and also www.hashtagigwe.com, where you can pick up both books and learn more about Obi, also known as Obinna, as the full first name. So thank you, brother. We appreciate you joining us. Hopefully you'll be back soon. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm gonna go out and cop 2 books right now. You should do the same. And ladies and gentlemen, that is our show here on the 13th floor, where the furniture isn't always the best, but the views are amazing. And we will catch you next week.
There it is.
Amazing.
Amazing.
It's the 13th floor, y'all.